All right, get ready for a deep dive, folks. We're going all in on nootropics today, specifically CDP Choline and alpha-GPC.
Yeah, two popular supplements that people are always asking about.
Yeah.
Especially if they're trying to, boost their brain power a bit.
For sure. Everyone wants to know, what's the difference?
Yeah.
And which one should I actually be taking?
Big questions.
Huge questions. And to really tackle this, we've got some great research lined up, a full-on meta-analysis on alpha-GPC.
Oh, wow.
And a really in-depth review article about how important choline is for our brains. And spoiler alert, both CDP Choline and alpha-GPC, they're both all about giving you more of that choline.
That's the common link, for sure. And I think before we even compare them, we got to make sure people understand just how crucial choline is. Think of it this way. Choline is like the key ingredient for making acetylcholine.
Right, acetylcholine, that's like the brain's messenger system, right? It's how our neurons talk to each other.
Exactly. It's vital for all sorts of things. Memory, learning, even muscle control. If you're low on choline, your brain just can't produce enough of these messengers. And that leads to problems. Like you might have trouble thinking clearly or, just functioning at your best.
Makes sense. But there's even more to it than that, right?
Oh, yeah. Choline's not just about acetylcholine. It's also a building block for phosphatidylcholine. And that's like the main component of cell membranes. And our brains, well, they're pretty much made of cell membranes.
So no choline, no healthy brain cells. Got it. It makes you wonder, are any of us getting enough choline from our diets?
Right. I mean, some foods have it, but are we really getting enough? That's where these supplements come in.
Exactly. CDP Choline versus alpha-GPC. They both promise to boost your choline levels, but they each take a slightly different path to get there.
Different routes to the same destination.
So let's start with alpha-GPC, since we have that meta-analysis. Yeah. This study was looking at folks with neurological conditions, things like dementia.
Conditions where there's often damage to the blood vessels in the brain.
Right, cerebrovascular injury. And they found some really positive effects from alpha-GPC. Improvements in cognition, how well people function day to day, even their behavior. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that they looked at alpha-GPC both on its own and also in combination with donepezil. That's a medication commonly used for Alzheimer's.
So they were curious if alpha-GPC could make the medication work even better.
Exactly. And in both cases, they saw positive effects. So that raises some really interesting questions about alpha-GPC's potential, not just as a supplement by itself, but maybe even as a way to boost the effectiveness of current treatments.
Okay, now I'm really interested in CDP choline. Our deep dive this time doesn't have a study directly comparing it to alpha-GPC, but we know it also gives you that choline boost. So does it even matter if they take different pathways as long as they both end up delivering that choline?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, in the end, both of them get converted into choline in the body. But they do have some interesting differences. CDP choline, for example, it's kind of like a multivitamin for your brain. Not only does it give you choline, but it also provides something called citidine.
Okay, and what's citidine all about?
Well, it gets converted into uridine in the body.
Uridine. Another brain-boosting hero coming into the story.
Exactly. Uridine is super important for making RNA, which is absolutely vital for building proteins. And those proteins, they play a huge role in how well our brains function.
I'm seeing a theme here. It all comes back to those brain cells.
Absolutely. There's even research showing that uridine might help protect the brain from damage, and it might even boost memory formation.
Wow. Okay, so CDP choline is kind of like a 2-for-1 deal. You get the choline boost, and then you get the potential benefits of uridine as well. But hold on. If both supplements are ultimately delivering choline, does it really matter which pathway they take?
That's where things get even more interesting. We definitely need more research to directly compare how effective they are. But there are some reasons why one might be better than the other in certain situations. For example, some researchers think that alpha-GPC might work faster because it gets converted into choline more directly.
Okay, so if you need a quick boost, alpha-GPC might be the way to go. But if you're thinking long-term, maybe CDP choline is the better choice.
That's a really good way to put it. It depends on your individual needs and goals.
And of course, before you start taking any new supplement, it's always a good idea to talk to your doctor, right? Especially if you have any health conditions.
Absolutely. Safety first.
Ah.
Always. But now that we've laid the groundwork, let's dive a little deeper into what makes each of these supplements unique and what we know about their potential benefits. Welcome back. So before the break, we were talking about the importance of choline.
It's amazing how much we've learned about choline already, right? But now I'm really curious about alpha-GPC. We talk about that meta-analysis that focused on people with those neurological conditions. But what about its effects on people who are already healthy?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there are actually some really interesting studies out there. Like one study found that alpha-GPC actually improved attention and reaction time in healthy young adults.
So it's not just for people who are worried about cognitive decline. It could potentially help anyone's brain function better.
Exactly. And it's not just about thinking faster either. Some research suggests that alpha-GPC might help you perform better during exercise too. Like it could actually increase your power output.
Whoa! So it could impact both mental and physical performance.
It seems like it.
That's fascinating. I wonder how it all works.
hmm
Is it all because of that increase in acetylcholine we were talking about?
Well, that's definitely a big part of it. But there's also evidence that alpha-GPC might affect other neurotransmitters too, like dopamine, which is involved in motivation and reward.
Ooh, this is where it's really interesting. It's like we're starting to understand the chemistry of our brains in a whole new way.
Exactly. And it shows just how powerful these supplements can be. But it's also a good reminder to be careful and do your research.
For sure. Speaking of being careful, let's talk about CDP choline for a minute. We were talking about how it provides both choline and uridine. Are there any studies looking at how it affects cognition in healthy people?
There are, and some of them are pretty promising. One study found that CDP choline improved memory and verbal learning in older adults who had mild cognitive impairment.
So it's not just preventing things from getting worse. It could actually improve cognitive function, even in people who are already starting to experience some age-related changes.
That's what the research suggests. And don't forget about that uridine component we talked about. There's research suggesting that uridine might actually work even better when it's combined with choline, like they have a synergistic effect.
Ah, the power of teamwork. So CDP choline isn't just giving you two good things. It's actually combining them in a way that could make them even more effective.
Exactly. And that's what makes this area of research so exciting. We're learning more and more about how these different nutrients work together to support brain function.
It sounds like both alpha-GPC and CDP choline have a lot to offer. But it seems like their strengths might be in slightly different areas. Like alpha-GPC, with its potential for faster action and its effects on dopamine, it could be a good choice for people who want a more immediate cognitive boost, or who are really focused on physical performance.
While CDP choline, with its double action of providing both choline and uridine and its potential for long-term brain health benefits, might be a better fit for people who are looking to support their cognitive function over time.
Right, but of course everybody's different. What works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly.
This brings us back to that million-dollar question. Which one is better? It doesn't sound like there's an easy answer, is there?
Not at all. It really depends on your individual needs and goals, and that's why it's so important to talk to your doctor.
Right. They can help you weigh the pros and cons and figure out which supplement, if any, is right for you. But now that we've really dug into the research and explored the potential of both alpha-GPC and CDP choline, I'm curious. What are some of the key things someone should think about when they're trying to decide between these two brain-boosting powerhouses? Welcome back to the show. It's decision time. We've covered so much ground already, all that science about alpha-GPC and CDP choline. But how do you actually choose between them?
Yeah, it can be a little overwhelming, like we've been saying all along. Talking to your doctor is really the first step.
Definitely. Safety first.
Right. They can look at your health history, any medications you're taking, and just make sure that either of these supplements are actually a good fit for you.
Absolutely. So let's say your doctor gives you the thumbs up. What are some of the things you should consider when you're choosing between these two?
Well, think about what we've learned about how they work. If you need a quick cognitive boost, like right before a big presentation or something, alpha-GPC might be the way to go because it might work a little faster.
Like a shot of espresso for your brain.
Exactly. But if you're more interested in the long game, like supporting your brain health over time, then CDP choline with its choline and uridine, that might be a better fit.
So it really comes down to what you're hoping to achieve.
Right. Short-term boost versus long-term support.
And we should probably mention that everyone's body is different, right?
Oh, for sure. Some people might tolerate one supplement better than the other.
Like you might get a headache or an upset stomach from one but not the other.
Exactly. So it's always a good idea to start with a low dose and then slowly increase it if you need to. That way your body has time to adjust.
Great advice. And it's a good reminder that supplements are just one part of the picture.
Right. A healthy lifestyle is still important. Eating right, exercising, getting enough sleep, all that good stuff.
It's like building a house. You need a strong foundation.
Exactly. Supplements can be like those extra features that make your house even better, but you gotta have the foundation first.
So as we wrap things up, I have a question for everyone listening. We've talked a lot about supplementing with choline, but knowing how important it is for our brains, do you think that when we get choline might also matter? Like, could getting more choline during certain times in our lives be even more beneficial, like during adolescence when our brains are still developing, or maybe even early adulthood?
That's a really interesting question. I'm not sure we have all the answers yet, but it definitely makes you think.
It does. It's like we're not just thinking about what we put into our bodies, but also when we do it.
Exactly. It's a whole new layer of complexity.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. We covered a lot of ground, learned a ton about alpha-GPC and CDP choline. But remember, this is just the start of the journey. Keep exploring, keep learning, and most importantly, keep those brains sharp.